Sutra 37 of the first chapter of Patanjali, which speaks about Samyama, or the yogic identification. And this is the big secret of yoga. So these yogis, for thousands of years, they would sit there in caves, in the forests, and they would scientifically explore, systematically, methodological way, would explore their inner world, and they discover this immense reality that the I and the body and mind are two separate things. You can connect and disconnect. And then a lot of the Jnana yoga is just about disconnect. I am not the body, I am not the mind. When I was in India, you come to the yoga class and says, you feel your body? I am not the body. Listen to your mind? I am not the mind. Yeah, and this comes in Jnana yoga, that's the first stage, you disidentify. And as you say it to yourself, you gradually start to feel. And there are many, many methods, Maharishi's method, Maharaj's method, the methods given by Vivekananda and by Rama Krishna, to disidentify from the body and the mind. And that's one stage. But for the Raja Yogis, what is taught in Patanjali, you go further. You disidentify with the body and the mind, and then you identify with something. And when you identify with that thing, you become that thing. You, as spirit, as Purusha in Patanjali's terms, as the self, somehow, not the self itself, but the first layers around it, assimilate tremendously the energy of that which they identify with. Now, when done correctly, Samyama is a combination of dharana, perfect concentration, dhyana, perfect meditation. Yeah, so when the flow of attention, as Patanjali defines it, becomes continuous to the meditation object without interruption, and samadhi. So you unite with that object, and through that you unite with the entire universe. So it is higher, Samyama is higher than samadhi, and therefore for most people completely inaccessible, right? Yeah, this is a great method, but you gotta go in samadhi at will anytime. Well, I barely go in dharana. But, and this is why Samyama is very relevant also for us, even if you can't reach total concentration, dhyana, total dharana, and then dhyana and samadhi, and you cannot totally disidentify with the body and mind, you can partially disidentify with the body and mind and identify with something elevated, with something divine. Identification is the fastest way to assimilate anything from anyone or anything. Yeah? So if you want to, and then the chapter of the cities, the third chapter of Patanjali, is all about that. You make Samyama with the sun, you get that paranormal power. You make Samyama with a star, you get that paranormal power. You make Samyama with your own throat, you overcome hunger and thirst. You make Samyama with that point in your body, and you obtain those paranormal powers. Yeah, it's not our subject here, but it all happens through that. You basically understand, I am not the body, nor the mind, and this is a matrix. With the disidentification with the body and mind, the world becomes a matrix. When there is no I in the world becomes soft as clay. And then you identify with something. Normally, it takes a few weeks of practice for people who can do it, and then all sorts of paranormal powers appear from there. What happens even when we do partial identification, with means of people that have practiced meditation for some years, but not necessarily now attain samadhi, you in any case receive a whole bunch of knowledge through identification. You fuse with an object and you just know. You just know, there's no doubt that you know. You fuse with a being. Even if you just have a picture or a video of a being, you can identify, you disidentify as much as you can. I'm not the body, not the mind, and I am Rama Krishna. and you will know stuff about him. Or if you have a video, videos of Nityananda or Yogananda, even easier. You hear them speak, and you just become that. Yeah? One of my friends, Nicoletta, who's been in a retreat for many, many years, as part of her retreat, she would put videos of Papaji, but she doesn't understand English. But she would sit there and she would identify, and she would just become one with his spirit, without understanding what he's saying. Yeah? And she would have very elevated states. For a while, that was a big part of her sadhana. She received these videos and she would just look without understanding, again and again and again, entering and assimilating the elevated qualities of Papaji in this way. Yeah? Essentially, knowing is being. Now, when we look at our own lives, it's very simple to see that the power of identification is the source of all our psychic power. Do you want to die? You don't want to die, right? You want to survive. That wish to stay alive, it is a consequence of our identification with the body. If we would not identify with the body, then, like the Zen master said, it doesn't matter if you live or die. His disciples asked him, but why don't you die? Because it doesn't matter if you live or die, was his very Zen answer. Yeah? But the wish to survive, that we would do so much stuff at, every time we get angry, every time we fall in love, every time we make an effort for purpose, everything, all energy, all driving force, all desires, all enthusiasm, all positive and negative emotions, they all begin with identification. There is the world, this is me, therefore my interest, therefore my energy goes into anger, purpose, enthusiasm, happiness, bitterness, sadness. Everything originates because it's me. If it's not me, how many emotions did you have about politics in Paraguay recently? Yeah, or throughout your life. There are things there happening like everywhere. But that doesn't make us emotional because it's not me. A planet bumped into another planet and they both exploded. It's not me. I have no drive, there's just no desire, no emotions. I don't care. Because it's not me. And everything that I do care about, and that's the entirety, is the sum total of all our psychic energy. Which eventually, this is what moves this body, so it's the sum total of the entirety of our energy, all derives from the feeling, I am this, and therefore I want to be enlightened, therefore I want to revenge, therefore I want to be someone, therefore I want to make love, therefore I want to be rich, therefore. But before the therefore, there is I am X. And if you take away, you wipe away that thought, what happens to all that energy? That energy which was trapped in the body and the mind and made us weak, that energy is released and it makes us extremely strong. The disidentification with the body, mind, with this culture, with this civilization, even with humanity, would lead to great realization, to true knowledge, and immense occult power. And then that identification can be reinvested into anything with huge energy and lead to all these results. If you look at the life of Muktananda, what did Muktananda do? So he was a wandering monk for many years, with a lot of practice and a lot of strength in him, and then he met Nityananda. And then, he had all sorts of initiations and pranayama and all sorts of things he knew, but when he met Nityananda, he says, okay, that's it. That's what I want to be. This is the ultimate realization. That's a real siddha. So he sat in front of Nityananda morning to evening, day in, day out. Nityananda would take his bath at 3 in the morning or something. They had a hot spring, and then he would sit quietly the whole day. And Muktananda would sit quietly in front of him the whole day and just identify. He would forget that he's Muktananda and become Nityananda. And At a certain moment, Nityananda gave him his grace and his Shakti, and Muktananda was liberated. And as Muktananda went to do his sadhana somewhere else to crystallize, Nityananda built an ashram for him next to his ashram, and they would give lectures in the same time. And the disciples would speak between them, and sometimes they would speak about exactly the same thing, with exactly the same movements, without pre. And then the gopis would love Krishna, and they would express their love because the trees were black like Krishna, so they would hold the trees like that, and they would do the same body movements, the same everything. And that's how Muktananda became Nityananda, and Nityananda became Muktananda. And because of that, Muktananda went to the West after. Nityananda, he didn't speak much. It wasn't so much his nature. He was just this kind of God on earth. And when Muktananda went to the West, being so identified with Nityananda, he had this remarkable success. He basically built, I think, 150 centers in a year and a half. It's like 3 centers a week. Every 2 days, somebody would say, wow, amazing. Here, take my house, make an ashram. Here, we stay now, we are your disciples. Imagine that impact. And then he was a total nobody in America and in the West where he went to. But having this immense occult power through the identification with his guru, this is what he attained, and this is what Patanjali recommends in Sutra 37. We totally identify with a divine being, as it was done in Christianity. Saint Francis, Saint Gemma, Padre Pio, they would identify so much with Christ that they would have the stigmata, like many other stigmatas. And the most important Christian text, the most sold Christian text over the centuries, except the Bible, is the Imitation of Christ, which is basically to do Samyama, to do identification with Christ. And it worked. These people like Saint Patrick and Padre Pio could raise the dead, could heal diseases, could make all sorts of miracles because they identified. Like Paul said, not I who lives, but Jesus lives in me. That's what it was about, and that's what gave Paul the power to do what he did. He identified. Not I who lives, disidentify from his own body and mind, but Jesus lives in me. Re-identify with Christ, and therefore became Saint Paul, and therefore became Padre Pio, and therefore became Muktananda, and so forth. And therefore Vivekananda became Rama Krishna, and so forth. That's what it's about. This is the supreme skill of yoga, and you don't need to wait until you get perfect in concentration in order to do it. We can start right away. So the other side of the equation is unconscious identification that we constantly do, right? And that we've done with our parents, and that's why I'm annoying like daddy. I'm aggressive like mommy. I'm a coward like second mommy, second daddy, something, we assimilate a lot of the negative qualities because of unconscious identification. And a lot of this is happening in all these fan movements, right? We are fans of rock stars and movie stars and all sorts of people that might be inferior to us when it comes to morality, purity, silence of the mind, capacity to love, the things that actually matter, We adore pop stars because they're very likable, because they are rich, because they fulfill so much of their desires, right? Oh, I want to be like that. Justin Bieber, you become like that. It's just an ordinary guy. And then you assimilate unconsciously all sorts of negative qualities, that just ordinary people have. And a lot of pop stars, they have substance addiction. And they're very full of themselves and very proud. Have temperament issues. They are depressed. They take antidepressives. They take drugs against anxiety. They're cuckoo. And if you adore them, you have their pictures in the room, and sit there in the room and play your guitar or pretend you are a movie star or a top model, like your favorite, that will enter your aura. And you find yourself attracted to drugs, attracted to all sorts of nasty things that just enter your aura because of this unconsciousness, because of this unconscious identification. Now, what's important about unconscious identification is that it can teach us about conscious identification, because we all do it. Well, how do I? Yeah, it sounds very nice, but how do I? Okay, I'm a Christian. How do I identify with Christ? Well, how did you identify with Daddy? How did you identify with Justin Bieber? How did you identify with Mommy? How did you identify with your best friends and became similar, or to your husband or to your wife? Check how you did it unconsciously and do it consciously. And it's enough. We have a model. You understand, that's the entire path. You have a godly model, perfect, enlightened, liberated human being, and then you disidentify with who you are, you identify with that. Gradually, all the body, the aura, the thoughts, the emotions, they become similar to that model, and that's it. You become similar to that. Yeah, like Krishna, who entered the 5,000 soldiers, every one of them became Krishna, had perfect Samyama with Krishna, and made love to the 5,000 gopis in that way. Yeah, that's enough. It's basically that. That's the entire spiritual path. I mean, from this perspective, you can also walk the entirety of the spiritual path in a different way, but essentially that is that. If you like this video and want to learn more about Tantra, about yoga, about psychology, emotional healing, lives of saints, and the scriptures,
then hit the bell, like, subscribe, and you'll never miss an upload. Thank you so much.